Hey, welcome back to Community Church. It's Valentine's Day, or Valentine's Week, or I don't know, maybe it's way past Valentine's Day, but either way, this series was released around the time of Valentine's Day, and that means this week we're in part 2 of a series called Not Feeling It. We're talking about relationships. My name is Lou, and this is Community Church Online. Well, if you're new here, we are also pretty new as a church. We've been around for about a year, though we've only had 10 services in person, but we are really glad that you've decided to spend some time with us this week, even though it's at a distance, and we would really love to know that you did that. So if you would go over to communitychurch.net/connect, there's a form on there, and if you take just a second to fill that out, just to say thanks, we'll send you a little gift card to a coffee shop in the mail. We're not going to sell your address. We're not going to show up at your door. We just love to know when we have new people hanging out with us. It probably would also be good for you to know that we have new programs released every single week for kids of all ages, or most ages, preschool, elementary school, and preteens as well. Those are available on our YouTube channel, on the app, and on our website. Well, like I mentioned, it's been a very long time. We're coming up on a year since we met in person, but we are really excited to announce that we are starting in-person meetings once again on March 7th. In person, socially distant meetings right here in our newly updated facility. We're going to start off doing two services. Seating's going to be limited. There's probably going to be some kind of registration, but for right now, so you can mark your calendar, we're meeting March 7th at 9:15 a.m. and at 11 a.m. Two services. If you're not comfortable coming out yet to these in-person gatherings, don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you. You can still join us online every week at communitychurch.net. Everything that we've been able to do here at the church and in the community has been made possible because there have been people who have been giving to us generously, financially supporting us, even though we haven't been meeting here in person. And if that's you, we are so grateful. We literally wouldn't have made it through this year without you. But if you would like to do that, we would greatly appreciate it. You can support us financially over at communitychurch.net/give. But as always, especially if you're new, please don't feel any pressure to give. First and foremost, we are glad that you just decided to spend a little bit of time with us this week, even though it's online. Well, we are all so excited to see you again here in person. So don't forget to mark your calendars for relaunch March 7th, 9:15 and 11 o'clock. Or if you're more comfortable to wait a little while, we totally understand that. So whenever it is, whether it's on March 7th or sometime after that, we are excited to see you once again in person. But until that day, we hope that you enjoy this week's online service.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. The sun sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. The sun sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Well, guys, I'm so glad that you came into counseling today. I think this is going to be great for all of us. Gary, I want to talk to you specifically. You don't need to talk to me. You really don't. You don't even need to talk to Susan. The first person you need to talk to is this guy. That's Gary. Go ahead and take it. Take yourself. There you go. Ask, how's the marriage going, Gary?
Gary, how's your marriage going?
And now answer him.
Fine.
I don't think that's true, Gary.
All right, welcome back. This week we're in part 2 of a series called Not Feeling It. We're talking about romance. We're talking about relationships, the warm and fuzzies, and hopefully this series will be helpful for you whether you're single and you're not in a relationship yet, but one day you hope to be. Hopefully this will kind of like really frame or reframe relationships in a healthy way for you that'll like really set you off in the right direction. Or if you're currently in a relationship and maybe it needs some realignment or some reminders, or even if you're single and you never intend to be with anybody, there are some really valuable transferable principles to just everyday relationships because we're all in some kind of relationship, right? That said, this week we're in part 2 of this series, and this series is one of those series where like one message kind of builds on another. So if you haven't watched week 1 or listened to week 1, you might want to pause this and go over and listen to that because that really laid the foundation. But in case you can't do that, basically what you need to know, like the bare minimum, is this whole idea of like love, especially in the context of marriage, right? Usually it's presented as like love either as a feeling or love as a choice, right? And so there's like this one or the other. Now, the more common one that we see like in movies and what we like to think love is this feeling. It's this warm, fuzzy feeling that we're all really chasing after. We all dream about like achieving it one day. We often will see it in the beginning of a relationship or the beginning of a marriage, and then sometimes that feeling fades a little bit, but we always want to get back there, right? It's this feeling. And if we're living our relationships like all based on feeling, well, then it's going to be like up and down, or hot and cold. And usually these things don't last, right? Like those kinds of relationships often end up like blowing up or sometimes just kind of slowly fizzling out. But then there's this alternative. And this we often hear about in the church world where people will say, no, love is not a feeling. It is not a feeling. Love is a choice. Love is a choice. And there is some truth to that, just like there is some truth to love being a feeling. However, what happens in this situation often, not always, but often, you have two people that are like, all right, we're in this forever, boom. You like stick your stake in the ground, you're not moving, together forever. And things kind of start to fade a little bit, but you've decided, no, we are in this forever. And unfortunately what happens is there is no feeling, and you've just kind of become lifelong roommates. So those are the two options, and maybe that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but for the most part, typically those are the two things that are presented to us. Today, and over like last week and in the weeks to come, what we're looking at is a third option. This is a beautiful like blending, marriage of the two. Because really, the kind of relationship that all of us are searching for is a relationship that is built on a choice, on a commitment to be there through thick and thin, but also one that comes with feelings, with a feeling of closeness, feelings of intimacy. And sure, those feelings will go up and down, but for the most part, the relationship is categorized by a good, a positive, a close, a feeling of closeness. And so last week we talked about this relationship that we're shooting for, like starts with the choice, but then the feelings do follow. We said that feelings are followers, meaning feelings don't just come out of nowhere. Feelings are a response to something that's happened, right? If you're happy about something that's happened. If you're sad about something that's happened. And we know and apply this logic to most areas of life. Like if we want to feel happy, we go seek something that will bring us happiness. If we want to feel rested, we go seek opportunities to relax. If we want, right? Like typically we make decisions that lead to feelings, but sometimes in relationships, when the feeling's not there, we're just like, well, I guess it's gone. Like it came and went like the wind. And we don't apply this logic. We don't recognize the fact that feelings are followers even in relationships. So what I promised you was that we were going to look at some choices. Choices that feelings will follow. So that was kind of like a long lead up, but it's important to bring us to where we are today. We're looking at choices that feelings will follow, the beautiful blend of choices and feelings in this relationship, love, romantic, intimate relationship. So here's my question for today, right? And there's actually going to be two, but here's where we're going to start out, right? When you think about relationships, romance, getting married, being with someone, right? What kind of person do you want to be with? What kind of person do you want to be with? Right? Maybe you want to be with someone who's like really loyal. Maybe you want to be with someone who's really funny. Someone who's really beautiful. Someone who really cares about the things that you care about. Somebody who is, I don't know, maybe you want to be with somebody famous. Maybe you want to be with somebody who's really quiet. Right? You can fill in the blank. Probably, most of us have thought about the kind of person that we want to be with. I remember growing up, like giving a lot of thought to this, like what kind of woman am I going to marry? How am I going to know it's her? Like, what kind of qualities she's going to have? Obviously, she's going to be a great basketball player because we're just going to be playing basketball, like, all the time. And, like, all these other things in my mind, like, I knew my wife was going to be. And probably you've thought of the same thing. And even if you're married right now, I'm willing to bet that you probably think about that. Now, hopefully it's not thinking about somebody you're not with, right? But probably you give some time to thinking about like things you wish your wife would do or be. Or you think about things you'd like your husband to do or be. And we typically express that sometimes to our friends, but often to the person that we're living with. We'll say like, it would be great if you started doing this, or maybe if you could be a little bit more like this, or if you wouldn't do this. And really what we're getting at here is like, this is the kind of person that I want to be with, and I would like you to be that for me. What kind of person do you want to be with? This is a natural question. We ask it all the time. So here's a second question, right? In the context of relationships, similar question, difference of just one word. In the context of relationships, what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of husband do you want to be? What kind of wife do you want to be? What kind of boyfriend do you want to be? What kind of girlfriend do you want to be? What do you want the person who is living with you or going to live with you, what do you want that person to come home to? If we're honest, most of us probably give more time to question 1 than we give to question 2. It is way more natural to be thinking about the kind of person we want to be with than the kind of person the person that we're with wants to be with, right? Like, it is way more natural to think about what we are getting than what the other person in the relationship is getting. And yet this second question is far, far, far more important. Relationships, like your marriage, your romantic journey, it will begin with question 1. And that's okay. That's natural. Like, at some point we should think like, okay, what kind of person do we want to be with, right? However, it cannot stay there. We have to move like pretty quickly from question 1 to question 2. In fact, we should also be asking question 2 while we're asking question 1, and probably more frequently than we're asking question 1. One question is natural, the other question is unnatural. One question will start your romantic journey, the other question will sustain your romantic journey. One question will lead to feelings of closeness and intimacy, of like prolonged happiness. And the other question will just lead to this unending feeling of disappointment, of unmet expectations. And really the key here is that one question is asking, what am I getting from a romantic relationship? And the other question is asking, what am I giving in this romantic relationship? So remember I said we were going to look at some choices that feelings will follow? Well, this week, the first choice that feelings will follow is the choice to give. The choice to be a giver in your relationship rather than a getter, to have this posture, to be thinking about what can I give to the person that I'm with rather than what can I get from the person that I'm with. It's the choice to give rather to get. Now, this is a simple concept, right? To give rather than to get, but it is incredibly difficult and extremely unnatural. We will never gravitate toward giving. We will always naturally be looking for what we can get in a relationship. But that will never lead us to lasting feelings of closeness. It will just be one disappointment, one letdown, one unmet expectation, and a gradual distance, feeling of distance that just grows over time and then eventually you get to the point where I must have made a bad decision because I'm clearly not getting what I want. The best example of this, ironically, is in the way God shows love to us. There's this verse in the gospel, the good news according to John, the good news about Jesus according to John. It's this really obscure passage, so I'm going to read it to you. This is John chapter 3, verse 16. It says, ready? For God so loved the world. In the original, okay, you probably heard this verse before, right? For God so loved the world. In the original language, it means God loved the world so much, or in this way, God loved the world. What's next? That he gave, his one and only son. Like the most famous verse, passage, sentence about the way God loves is in and through an act of giving. Jesus would explain it a different way later on. He said, like, there is no greater expression of love. There's no greater way to show love than to lay down your life for the people that you love, for your friends, like literally to give, to offer all of yourself. That is the greatest way to love. That is like really, that's the essence of what it means to love, to give of yourself. And what's amazing is that we go into relationships and we live in relationships saying that we want to be in love. Like what we're saying is we want to be in a relationship of givers. And yet we go into a relationship hoping to be in love, just looking at what we can get, right? Like being in love, we have made that all about what we can get instead of what we can give. And so it's really no surprise that there is no feeling of love. There's no feeling of intimacy or of closeness because we're not doing the love, the giving. We're doing the opposite of what love is when we're looking to get from the other person in the relationship. Like I said, it's simple, but it is so hard. I actually explained this last year when we did the series called It's Not You, It's Me. Like most people look at a relationship, a marriage, like 50-50, okay? Like I'll give a little, you give a little, and together, like we'll meet halfway. And that sounds good. Like what else would you expect, right? Makes sense to me. You do what I want, I'll do what you want, and in the middle, like we'll be happy. And while at first that might sound like it will work, it doesn't. All that is really just a contractual agreement. Like you give me what I want, I'll give you what you want. We have these kind of agreements with like our mortgage brokers, right? Or our landlords, like you let me live in your home, I'll pay you this much. Nobody's feeling really close or intimate with a give-take relationship. And what's amazing is that we actually feel the closest to the people that we give the most to. So in other words, like what I'm getting at here, the picture of marriage that God presents to us, the one that like is close, the one that has this feeling of intimacy that we're all chasing after. In my mind, like my marriage to me should not be like, all right, I'm gonna go 50, I'm gonna meet like halfway, and then I'm going to expect my wife, my spouse, to come the other 50 and we'll meet halfway, right? Like, no, that's like a cheap contractual agreement, right? The idea of marriage as God presents it to us is, to me, is I go the full 100. That's it. It is me, like my job in the marriage is to give, period. Not to give if, not to give but to give, like the full 100. And again, like while that sounds extreme, while it seems like that will cost you a lot, it will. Think about how beautiful a marriage could be when there are two people going the full 100. Not like 50-50 meet you in the middle, but like I am all yours and you are all mine. That is a picture of intimacy. And what's amazing, and this is explained in other areas of the Bible, the New Testament as well, like the best picture of this is in the way that Jesus treats us, where he's like, I will start, I will initiate, I will take the first step, and I will give you everything while you're giving me nothing. And the whole idea of like following Jesus, in case you're not familiar with it, the whole idea is like that in itself. The fact that he does not say, if you do this, then I will love you. But the fact that he gives us everything, like that has this ability to grip us and like make us want to follow him. That's why people have literally given their lives for what they believe about Jesus. Not because they're afraid, not because of what like Jesus might do to them if they deny him or like don't do the right thing, but because they are so moved by the fact that he has given everything, that they're like, this is the person I want to live for. And so they give everything. And that's the idea of a beautiful marriage here. That's the idea of a marriage that has that feeling we're looking for. When there are two sides like, all right, you know what? Like, you as you are, with your like little annoying little habits, the things that like really get under my skin, the things that I can't stand that you do, like with those and your major character flaws, I accept you completely and I give myself to you completely. That's what it means to love like Jesus has loved us. Now, like, I think it's important that we make a disclaimer here, right? Like, when I'm talking about completely accepting the other person, embracing the other person, I'm talking about accepting and embracing the person. I'm not talking about completely, unconditionally accepting, like, all behaviors in a relationship. There are behaviors in relationships that do need to be corrected, that are serious, that can cause harm to either one party or both parties in a relationship. And those things should not be accepted in a relationship. But there's a difference between working to correct a behavior or addressing a behavior or taking necessary steps to get yourself away from certain behaviors. But there is a huge difference between that and living in a relationship where we are constantly telling the other person how we want them to change, to adjust to the kind of person we think we should be in a relationship with. So here's my little like tool for you, right? Like, here's the thing I want you to take with you either later today or tomorrow or sometime in the shower, whatever, like when this comes up in your mind. Here's what I want you to think about. If we're talking about giving and not getting, if that's the thing that leads to this feeling of closeness that we're all looking for. Anger. We've talked about anger before. Anger happens when I don't get what I want. Really, it's that simple. Pretty much every time I'm angry, it's because I'm not getting something that I want. Whether it's justified or not justified, that's when anger happens. When we are angry at the other person in our relationship, and this is one of those things that's like hits me like right between the eyes, right? It is a sign that we are thinking about getting and not giving, right? If anger says, I'm not getting what I want, right away, like the flag should go up, the light bulb should light and ding, right? Like it should be the indicator. Right now, if I'm angry, I'm only able to be angry when I'm thinking about what I can get from you rather than what I can give to you. And so whether you act on that or not, really that's up to you. That's like your decision. But if you want to know, am I thinking about getting more often than I'm thinking about giving? Stop and think about how often, like how quickly do you get angry in a relationship? And in those moments when we get angry, whether it's justified or not, whether we're right or we're wrong, in those moments when we're angry, we can stick to our guns and we can plead our case, right? Or we can make a choice. We can make a choice to shift our mindset, right? To go from getting to giving. Rather than thinking about like, what can I get right now from this situation? I can think like, what can I give to my significant other in this situation for their good? And when we start to make those choices on a regular basis, maybe not at first, right? Maybe not right away, maybe right away, but not always right away, we will start to see that the feelings we're looking for will follow that choice.